Welcome again, guys. This is part 2 of the Abaddon painting videos. This one's going to be mainly using contrast with a little bit of airbrushing. To start with, of course, we've got the figure in parts. If you've not seen part 1, go back. You'll be able to see what the bits were. And this, I'm actually just putting black Templar black over a Mechanicus Standard Grey undercoat. Now the reason I'm using Mechanicus Standard Grey is simply because it's going to be a lot darker, so it's going to actually create a lot darker tone for us. I'm basing the cloth now on the actual figure in corn red, and what you'll probably see on a moment, just be very careful not to make sure that you're going to get it onto the black. Yeah, I've got blue tack on the underneath of the feet, so it's easier to glue. If I want to use plastic glue, it's easy to glue it back onto the base. I'm also painting the hair as well. This is going to be painted in the corn red, and all the red portions should be highlighted the same. Corn red again through an airbrush. This is just on the actual cloak itself. Now with the cloak is sprayed black, so even though it's going to be corn red in the same procedure, you're actually going to get a darker colour on the model itself. I am leaving some of the recesses darker, if you've seen, and yeah, I did, because I've blue tacked it on. I did need to make sure that my finger was behind it so it didn't fly off. Evil Sun Scarlet is next. This is just going to be done through the airbrush, just to try and get. I always find with cloth it's a lot better to do the transition with an airbrush. It just looks smoother, it looks cleaner. It's much more of a preference to myself. Now we're going back over the armour with another coat of black Templar. The reason for this is because it wasn't dark enough for me. I wanted it to be really dark, just with a little bit of a highlight. See the other figure better in the background. So I went over it again, just allowing, effectively me doing over red allowed that enough time to be able to dry properly. Screaming Bell is going to be on the trim next. So anything I'm wanting the trim or the metallic pieces, they're just painted up with Screaming Bell. Quite an easy colour to use, you're just going to have to highlight it later. I did prep the back wrong, I did it in white, that's mainly for the skulls. So I went over the areas that I wanted the black, as it were, in Mechanicus Standard Grey. And then painted the skulls with, it's not Screaming Bell, it's Gracia. Just so I can, the contrast paint, because that's what you're supposed to use with contrast, just to try and make it easier to use. Black going on now, just the same process as we've done on the actual armour, just to make sure that that's going to match once it's glued together. Onto the base. Now the base itself has already been, I'm using Abaddon black just to black out the figure that I'm about to paint. Now the base has already been sprayed with two different cheap airbrush spray paint browns, just to be able to give it that effect. I'm now going to hit Talan Sand and basically just used, no, it wasn't black, it was scorched brown, sorry, bestial brown on the armour pieces of the marine underneath, and then I'm doing his head and the shoulder pads in Carrack Stone. We've then got corn red going back over the bestial brown, yeah, that one, Rhinox Hide, just to be able to, everyone following this is going to get this wrong, that's going to be the base for my actual red. I'm not airbrushing this, I'm just doing it normally, and then my Feastin' red with a wet palette is going to go over the top. I'm trying to create, next to him I'm going to be using Tyrant Skull, I'm trying to create a Blood Raven, because this was a commission. One of all his opponents is, of course, a Blood Raven army. Mixing the Shabty Bone giving it a second layer, and then hitting it with a bit of white just as the highlight. Abaddon black is just going to be used for the trim. I'm not using the contrast. I'm wanting this to be proper black and dark, and then of course just hit Dark Reaper in the corners using a wet palette. Now I've covered this off with parafilm. I'm just painting silver on the torch, and then I'm going to go over that with the Rift Charger Grey. I think that actually creates a nice looking metallic. That's a personal opinion, of course. This is before I actually start painting the flames. And then of course I've obviously painted a little eagle on that torch with Nazgreg yellow. That makes it look like a really nice looking gold. Now we're going to hit this with an airbrush. Ooh, airbrush time! We're going to be going in with Uriel yellow first, and just basically airbrushing the area where it's going to be the most hot, and then we're going to use the other colours just coming away from it. Using Troll Slayer Orange next. I always overlap, so I always paint majority of it in the one colour, and then I know where my transition is going to be and I'm not missing something. You can also create a nice little under highlight as well, or a pre-shade, or pre-highlight I suppose, for the actual colours that you're using. And then last but not least, I use Mephiston Red. So that's a slightly darker red than the Evil Suns. It goes on nicely. I'm talking on this bit because I've actually dry brushed that even though it's underneath the masking. I've painted this with, you know, your traditional black. I'm going to be hitting that with the colour shift paint, which I believe is burning gold, just to try and give that a nice effect, and then maybe hit it with another colour shift over the top to try and give it two effects if I possibly can. So change of pace for colours. We actually used the colour shift paint. That one's actually burning gold. These are from I think it's called Green Stuff World, which is a Spanish company, but it's quite easy to get hold of. You just PayPal. And then I'm going to be hitting it with Emerald Gateway. This is just to try and create a random pattern with some random colouring. Agrax Earthshade now. This is going to be painted all over the actual base itself. The colouring for me was a little too bright, but I'm not bothered if I go over anything, because it should be able to merge stuff and make it merge into the actual rest of the base itself. Now I painted all the bones with Ushabti bone, all the skulls. And then all the shell casings with brass. At this point I'd already dry brushed the whole entire base with Tyrant Skull. It's probably just something I forgot to record, which I apologise for, but the whole of the base had just been dry brushed with Tyrant Skull before this procedure. And then now I'm just hitting it with, I'm hitting the brass casings with the Agrax Earthshade Gloss, which is fantastic for metallic colours. Back to the grey seer now. I'm just going to be painting up the cloak. Now this is actually quite a good looking cloak when you do it up like this. This is going to be using some of the browns, but I'm just painting up the cloak, just prepping the area ready for the contrast paint. Also, while you've got the paint out, it's time to do his face. Just make sure you've got a smaller brush and just paint all of the face, plus of course a little bit that goes up to the hair. That's been painted in grey seer as well. Now the marine helmet I've painted with a metallic silver. This I'm still using an old school bolt gun metal, mainly because I found one, it just needs using up, so I'm just trying to get rid of it as best I can. If you can use lead belcher and other colours as well to achieve the same effect. And then I'm going to hit Flesh Wash and this is done on some of the silver parts that I'd already painted, such as his gun. This creates a very weird looking sort of brass or bronze. If you've not got flesh wash, just try and find a very deep brown ink wash, and it tends to do the same thing. Just painting the skulls up with Tyrant Skull. That includes the ones on his trophy rack up the top. This is where I get the brown. The brown's wild wood, seeded out contrast paint. I'm just painting all of the cloak, just trying to leave the flesh bit, that's like the overlapping skin piece at the top. I'm just going to leave that alone because that's going to be painted with some reds. Now the bone I'm going to be painting with Seraphim Sepia. I'm just going to go all over that, not really taking much care, just splashing it on, because of course that does create a nice looking bone effect. I'm not really using the new bone for contrast. I don't think it looks the same. Now, apologies for not being in camera shot on this one. I'm just painting the Space Marine helmet, which we painted silver. I'm just painting that with orc flesh, just to try and make it look a bit like a salamander's helmet. Now next I'm using Voluptuous Pink. This is going to be just on the little thing that goes up to the helmets. I'm also then going to be painting his flesh with one of the flesh colours. Flesh colours I am actually using is the Duck-Off Flesh. And then I'm just painting the gun that I've painted silver. I'm just painting that with Black Templar. Claw was just washed with some classic Nuln oil. With Angel Red on the top knot and one of the gems. Evil Sun Scarlet, this is just going to be on the flesh at the back, so I'm just painting that up. It's going to be nice and bright, and I'm actually going to be using one of the contrast paints as more of a way of darkening the procedure. Now I'm dry brushing some white now, heavily dry brush, sort of going up the sword. This is mainly going to be for effect later. At this point I'd also put the Blood Angel Red onto the skin at the back of the cloak. And then this is just for blue. The blue I'm actually using is the Telesar blue. It's quite a nice bright blue, but because of the way we've done the highlighting, it should now create it normally. And then I just finished that little bit of a back off with some Caribou Crimson. And then that's it. I know I'm waffling. I'm not used to be able to recording this in this particular format, but it's actually easier for me to get a video out this way. This is a kind of a quick and simple. You're just using mainly contrast paints with some old school classic techniques. If you can see the cloak, even though it's a bit darker, we still use the same colours, but because we've used a different base coat, it actually has given it a different feel and a different look. Well, thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed that one. This is the second video as well, so if you are wanting to watch the first video, which was more of a specialist technique using inks and airbrushes, I did still use a bit of contrast, because I am using contrast in a lot of my painting now, simply because certain things you can get done quicker. Fur looks a hell of a lot better for me, in my personal opinion, when done with contrast. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Please like, share, subscribe, hit the notification button for more. And if you want to support the channel and keep it running, I've got a donate button over at rootstem.co.uk. Right, thank you very much, guys. We'll see you next time.